Hey everyone, it's Connor from Koyfin. Today I'm going to show you how to build 11 unique chart templates inside of Koyfin that you may find useful and will save you some time when pulling up companies in charts or dashboards. A chart template is a saved version of a chart that's going to be reusable. So these templates mean you don't need to recreate your favorite views over and over again. It can also be pulled into custom dashboards, the lots of charts feature, and the snapshots feature as well. Building a library of chart templates is somewhat of a productivity hack, and the goal of this video is to both inform you how to build them, why they're important, and give you a little bit of inspiration as to what kind of chart templates you can use. We'll kick off with the fundamentals. So here we're in the chart tool. This is historical graph. This is the most flexible chart that we have in Koyfin. You can really add any data series to this. Here on the left panel, you have templates. We can see that we don't have any right now. We have one unsaved template and we have one example template up here as well. The concept of chart templates only exists in the historical graph, and this will make more sense as we go through the video. But to give you some context, intraday does one thing and it does it really well. It shows you the intraday pricing of a security. Because it only has one use case, there's no need to have a chart template. The chart tool itself is the template. And the same goes for performance as well, which shows you the CAGR of a security over a period of time. This in itself only does one thing. So you can configure the settings and change how it looks, but the template itself is already made. It's a living, breathing chart template. So let's go back to the historical graph. So right off the bat, you're going to be given a pretty blank chart template with a historical chart there. If at any point you want to make some changes to this, you can go into the settings bar here. And on the left-hand panel, you're going to be able to add some grids if you want. So we could put some horizontal and vertical grids there. You can change the colors of those grids. You can change the way that the labels are presented, the fonts on the axis, how those axes are set up, the minimum and maximum range, and whether you prefer log or linear charts as well. For me, I like a grid, so we'll keep that in there for the duration of this video. Number one, I want to show you a basic chart template and just how to set that up. And I also want to show you a bit of a hack so that you can make this pop up anytime that you open a security. So we'll start off pretty simple here. All I'm going to do is keep the price there. I might want to change that to a candle chart if I'm so inclined. Change the color of the up arrows so that they're green. And I might want to change the label color to green as well. Next, I'm going to add a new data series, which is total return. And I just want to show that here. I can tweak around with the colors there as well, make that black, make it normal. And then I'm also going to add total return annualized as well. So we're going to take a 5-year CAGR here, and we're going to keep that in the panel below, and we'll make the color of that one blue and normal. So let's say, and hypothetically, this is the kind of view that we want every single time that we open up a chart, and we don't want to have to recreate it. We just want to see the price, the total return, and the 5-year CAGR. The first thing to do here would be to save this as a chart template. So I'm just going to go up here and save as, and we're going to call this default total return, and we'll go ahead and save that. You can also add a command shortcut to the chart template as well. So we can see that now we have a chart template created, default total return, and anytime that I change the security, it's going to now save all of those changes in the template and show me this new view. Now, assuming that we want to see this view every time we open up a new security, something we can do is go into settings here. We're going to go into preferences, and we can actually save this chart template to open up every single time. So we have a few different options here. So default historical graph command, you have a few options here. If you open up this drop down, what it's basically asking you is every time that you open a new chart, what do you want to be presented in that chart? Do you want it to be the last opened template that you were using? Do you want it to be the default chart template? Or do you want it to be the unsaved chart template so that you can have a blank canvas and then start building the chart from there? So that chart template we just made, the total return default graph, if I select default and then I can choose a default graph template here. So I'm just going to take the default total return. So now what happens anytime that I open up a chart, it's going to pull up that chart template for me. And I come in here and I can chuck in a different ticker and it's just going to pull up that same information for me. The second chart template I want to show you is valuation versus the mean. So let's go ahead and remove all of these data series here. And we're going to go ahead and use a few different valuation metrics as well as add some statistical bands to them. So I'm going to search for the forward PE here. I'm going to add that. I want to view this over a 5-year time horizon or maybe 10 years. What I want to show in here as well is a mean. So I'm going to go into the indicator settings here. First thing I'm going to do is just make this thick. And I'm going to come into statistical bands and I'm going to add a mean option here. You have some choice with color here as well. So you can make this thick, you can make it solid, dotted, or dashed, or you can make it a kind of a similar color to the line chart that you have there. So I'm going to make this a light blue. So now we have PE and we have the mean over 10 years. Some other things that I might want to see in here as well. I might want to see EV to EBIT on a forward basis. And this is going to open this up into a new panel. I might also want to see price to sales as well. And let's say we want price to free cash flow and EV to gross profit. So now we have 5 different valuation means in there. All I'm going to do now is just do the same thing that I did with price to earnings. I'm going to go in, add a statistical band, tweak around the colors, and I'll show you what that looks like. And here it is. So when you're happy with the presentation of this, you can go ahead and save this as a chart template. I'm going to call this one valuation versus mean. You can save that. And again, similar to the other ones, now whenever we're going to open up a new security here, if we want Apple, for example, it's just going to create that chart template for me. And just to demonstrate what I said at the beginning when I said you can pull this into dashboards and so on. If we go into a snapshot, like the overview snapshot, for example, any place there is a chart, you're likely to be able to chuck a chart template in there. So you can see that Apple right here has a 1-year price chart. If we click this drop down arrow, we're actually able to use our chart templates in here as well. So if we take default total return, we're now going to be able to see that view that we created. And this will be present anytime that we change the security and come back to this snapshot. So if I go for NVIDIA, we're going to see the same data there. Similarly, if I go into the lots of charts feature, which is a great feature we have a video on, if I select an index like the S&P 500 here, I can also go into options and choose a default chart template. So let's say I want default total return again. We're now going to present that data to you, or if I want valuation versus the mean, and let's say I want to reduce the number of charts in there so it's a bit clearer. There we go. And similarly with dashboards, if you have a dashboard here, you can pull in charts and you can use those chart templates as well. So coming back to charts, we're going to just fire through the rest of these. So we've built a total return chart and a valuation versus mean chart. The next thing we might want to do is something a bit more fundamental in nature. So I'm going to take total revenues here, just search that in the data series. We want this on a trailing basis. And let's go to 5 years or 10 years. So what we want to do here is overlay a bunch of other fundamental data so that when we first pull up a company, we just want a quick glance of all the fundamentals at a high level. So what I'm going to do is I've pulled up total revenue. I'm going to make this linear. I'm going to make this linear. I'm now going to turn this into a bar, and I'm going to change the color to a slightly off gray, and I'm going to change the label color to a slightly off gray as well. I'm going to put in some other information here like gross profit, notional. We want that on a trailing basis too. And you can see that initially it gets pulled up as a separate panel. If I now want to push that into this panel up here, all I have to do is go on the legend here, and you can see these little icons which are going to allow you to merge. You can also do this on the axis as well. And I'm just going to pop this one up here. So now you can see it's present within the chart. I'm also going to go ahead and add some EBIT in here as well as some net income and some free cash flow. Next thing I'm going to do is just merge these all into the same chart so that they all come up on that bar chart. The next thing I might want to do is throw in some margins here. So I'm going to take gross profit margin and I'm going to take EBIT margin as well. We're going to keep those on separate panels. And we're going to turn them into bar charts and then color code them with the respective line chart in the top panel. So gross margin would be green, EBIT margin would be orange, and we'll change the label there as well. You could alternatively push these into the same panel, but I find that especially over longer periods, you get more kind of granularity into the change or the fluctuation of the margin. So if I hide gross profit here, it's a lot more evident that NVIDIA's EBIT margin has been expanding. Likewise, if I hide EBIT margin, you get a bit more granularity there. So I personally like to push them into separate panels, but you can merge them all the same. So this would be what I call a kind of fundamental glance, a quick snapshot of the company from a higher level. We're going to go ahead and save this one as fundamental glance. And for the fourth chart template, we're going to stick with the fundamentals, but maybe you want to get more granular into a particular area of the fundamental picture. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all of these and just keep gross profit. So let's say we want to show the gross profit, we want to show the year-over-year gross, and we also want to see the margin as well. So I'm going to change this so that we view this gross profit on a quarterly basis. I'm going to turn this into a bar. If we want to show the growth rate of gross profit, all we have to do is type in gross profit again and have the same data series there. It's the same data. We're now just going to manipulate that data. So initially, we think that you want to show that in the same panel, not necessarily true. If we go to the second gross profit data series that we've added here, we can now transform this data. I want to show this on a year-over-year growth. So again, you can have these both present in the same panel or axes. I personally like to show them on separate panels. So I'm just going to move the panel up there a little bit. So now that we've got gross profit and we've got gross profit growth, I'm going to turn that into a bar chart. You can change the colors of the up and down indicators as well. The last thing I'm going to do here is just add a gross profit margin on a quarterly basis. And you can change that to whatever configuration you want. Here, I'll just go with an area chart. And you can call this something like gross profit, growth, and margin. And when you save that, you can also replicate this view for anything you want, whether it's EBIT or maybe R&D, which would look a little something like this. So up here, we've got R&D expenditure. Notional, we've got the R&D year-over-year growth on a trailing basis, and then we've also got the R&D margin as well. You can use this for EBIT, net income, whatever kind of data series that you want. So let's change securities just to change it up a little bit. So we're going to go with meta. We're going to delete some of these data series here. And we're going to pull up two things, the price, which is a historical price graph. I'm going to turn this into a line chart, and we'll make that black and normal. And we're also going to pull up the free cash flow as well. So let's take that on a trailing basis. If we want to overlay these two charts, which is something we get asked about quite a lot, what we're going to do is take the free cash flow. We're going to merge that into the chart up here. And if we want to present this visually, we might turn that into a bar chart or an area chart. And we might want to go ahead and make that blue. So now you have the price and you have the free cash flow over time. It's a little quirk of the Koyfin system, something we should fix. But if you ever notice that the data that you want to represent kind of in the front of the other data looks like it's hidden behind it. So you can see here the price chart is kind of hidden behind the bars. This relates to the order that the data series is in. So to fix this, I would delete the historical price chart. I would just add it again after, turn it into a line. Let's make it black again. So now you can see that the price chart is actually showing up in front of the bar chart. So that's how you'd fix that. So let's save this one as free cash flow versus price. Alternatively, you could also take free cash flow per share, which is another important data series, and we're going to take that on a trailing basis. We could hide the free cash flow here, and we can just do the same thing again. So now what we're showing here, similar chart, but it's free cash flow per share as opposed to notional free cash flow. You could save this as another chart template, free cash flow per share. Alternatively, you could have all of these data series live inside of this single chart template, and when you jump in here, you can just alternate between showing the notional and the per share. So on the topic of outstanding shares, we'll jump into the sixth chart template, which is going to be showing the share repurchases over time, as well as the shares out and the rate of change in those shares outstanding. So we'll stick with meta for this one. What we're going to do is type in share repurchases. Repurchases of common stock. We'll take that on a trailing basis. We will make this chart linear, and we will turn it into a bar chart once again. Next thing we're going to do is we want to show the rate of change over time of these shares outstanding. So I'm going to add shares outstanding here. I'm also going to add it a second time and then push this into another panel. So here we can just take this one, we'll turn it into an area chart, and we'll make that blue. So we can see the rate of the number, the notional of shares over time. And here on the bottom panel, I'm just going to take the same data series. We're going to transform it to performance, which just shows the rate of change. I'll make that a slightly different color of blue. Now we have that presentation in a matter of seconds. So we've got the repurchases of common stock, we've got the shares outstanding over time, and we have the change in outstanding shares. So if I click 5 years, for example, we can see how much stock Meta has repurchased, and we can also see that they've eaten about 11% of their outstanding share count over the last 5 years. So we can go ahead and save this one as well. So number 7, we're going to look at cash conversion cycle. So let's take a look at Chipotle for this one. So for those who don't know, the cash conversion cycle is a measure of how quickly or what length of time it takes a company to convert its investments in inventory and other resources into cash flows from sales. Well, it's made up of a few different variables, but at a high level, we have all these data series inside of Koyfin. So we'll first take the cash conversion cycle, and we'll take that on a trailing basis to kind of smooth out the volatility. And then we're going to add the 3 components to that output. So first we want the average days payable outstanding, and we'll take that on a trailing basis. Next, we want days sales outstanding. And we also want days inventory outstanding as well. So the way this is calculated is by taking the days inventory outstanding, you add that to the days sales outstanding, and then you take away the average days of payables outstanding. And we can see how these change over time, and we can see which one of those inputs is impacting the output of cash conversion cycle. So what we're showing you here in this example is that on average, Chipotle are able to collect cash from their inventory a full 6.5 days before they have to pay their creditors on a net basis. So moving on to our next chart template, number 8, we're just going to keep things very simple, and we're going to go to Match Group to demonstrate this one. We'll open this up. You can see that Match Group, a software company, typically doesn't hold inventory, so a data series like cash conversion cycle won't be complete because they don't have the inventory component. You'll just have the sales and the payables outstanding. But we're not interested in cash conversion cycle for Match Group. We're just going to keep things very simple, and we're going to create a drawdown chart. So if we want to see the drawdown from peak, all we do is type in drawdown. We'll have that data come up here. We might want to overlay this one with maybe a price graph as well and pop that into a separate panel. And we'll change some colors around. So very simple, but it does what it needs to do. It shows you the drawdown. So let's go ahead and save this one as drawdown from peak. And we can use this for anything, whether it's a security or an ETF like the SPY. You can see that the SPY is currently at an all-time high. A few more to get through. Number 9, we're going to look at some more price-related data, which is moving averages. So let's jump to Microsoft. We'll keep things simple here. I'm sure many of you have more technical indicators that you're proficient in, but we'll take a price chart here. We'll zoom in a little bit there. Turn this into a candle. And now what we want to do is add some moving averages. So if you want to take market data, you can go to technical indicators here, or you can alternatively just type those in. So if we want a simple moving average of 50 days, and we also want the 200-day as well. Alternatively, you can look up for the exponential moving average as well. Or you can take these moving averages and go into the indicator settings and change those to the length and frequency that you desire. You can see here right now. So you can see right now, all of these data series are ungrouped. What we want to do here, because they're all kind of on the same axis basis, we want to just group these so they look a bit smoother. We might also want some other context in here like relative strength. So let's look at the RSI. And let's also throw in some correlation in there as well. And there's a few different things you can do to tweak these. So the RSI, number 1, every data series has a slightly different way of modifying it. So you can see here that the moving average has length and frequency and some colors. The RSI has the bands. So we might want the upper band to be green, but we might want to make that a bit thicker, or we might want to make that a solid line. The lower band as well, we might want to make that thicker and be a solid line. And we might want the primary band to be black, and you can also change the length as well. Commonly it's 14 days, but you can tweak that as well. And for correlation, Right now we have this set up to be relative to the SPY, but you can also change what that's relative to another ETF or a fund or a security. You can change the length, and of course you can change the colors as well. So this might be something you want to see as your default chart template if you're more technically orientated. Chart template setup. So next, number 10, we're going to look at return on invested capital. So maybe similar to what we showed you in the cash conversion cycle. We're going to look at the primary data series, and we're going to also look at the inputs to that data series as well. So return on invested capital, we're going to take that on an annual basis. We're going to pull up 10 years of history, or maybe 20 years. We're going to turn that into a bar chart. So now we can see return on invested capital, but we also want to see the mean of the invested capital. So we'll go to statistical bands, we'll take the mean, we'll make it a slightly lighter shade of green, or maybe a slightly darker one than that. So we can see the mean over the period. And we also want to see the inputs to this as well. So the way that we calculate this in Koyfin, and if you can find this online by typing Koyfin return on invested capital or typing Koyfin data dictionary, you'll find the definition. But what we use here is NOPAT, which we're going to take on an annual basis. And we also use invested capital. We personally take average invested capital, but you can also show the regular invested capital from a year-over-year basis as well, just so that you have that additional context. So after making a few tweaks and color changes, here's what we have. We have return on invested capital up here as a percentage with the mean over the time period. We have the NOPAT over time. We have the average invested capital as well as the individual year invested capital as well. So we can go ahead and save this as ROIC. And now we can jump open into other securities as well, and we can just see that same data. And last but not least, I want to show you another one, which is sales or EBIT versus the estimate over time, and just a little hack of how you can quickly create this chart template. So if we're on MasterCard here, there's something we can do. Let's go to data series, let's go to asset specific and equity. We allow you to plot the actual versus the estimate. So let's take sales. And you can see that every little dot here represents a quarter. And when you hover over that, it's going to give you some information on the beat or the surprise and the average estimate. You could overlay this with a price chart as well. And you could also go back to the asset specific and take the estimate or surprise as a percentage or a notional. You can do both if you want, but let's take surprise percentage here. So now up here, we have all the information on the sales expectations versus what they actually did for MasterCard, and then the share price as well. And down here, we show the actual versus the estimates. So here in this quarter, 2018, we can see that MasterCard beat sales by about 10%. You can save this as a chart template as well. But a quick hack, if you go to snapshots and you go to earnings history, this same data is presented in this chart, and we show that as a table as well. If you want to just pull something from the chart directly, this little arrow icon up here in the top right-hand side, if you click that, it's going to pull you into a chart, and it essentially makes that chart template up for you. So you could make some tweaks here. You could add a horizontal grid if you're so inclined, and then you could just easily save that as a chart template. And the same goes for when you back in the snapshot. If you want to look at this on an EBIT or an EPS basis as well, let's change this to EBIT. All we're going to do is pull that into the chart, and there we go. We have it ready made. So that does it for this video. Obviously, the goal of this was to show you the value of chart templates, how to set them up, and then also give you a little bit of inspiration as to what kind of chart templates might be useful for your workflow. As always, you can reach out to us at Koyfin Charts over on Twitter. You can drop a comment in the comment section below. Our help desk is help@koyfin.com. See you next time. Thank you.